Good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you guys are listening to this. Welcome back to another edition of the Layman's AI podcast. I am Adam,
And my name is Brian.
and we're here today recording episode 55 of the Layman's AI podcast. And this is a special episode because, Brian, we have our second guest of all time with us on the Layman's AI podcast. So, with no
Yes.
further ado, I'm going to dive right in because we're pretty excited about this. I would like to introduce Adam Palczewski. Hope I said that right. He is an educator, a faculty support person, and co founder of Secondary AI, a platform helping teachers confidently integrate AI into their classrooms. His career in education began in higher education, where he worked closely with faculty, supporting the adoption of educational technology and leading professional development on digital tools and integrating AI. Through his work, Adam saw firsthand how many educators were excited about AI, but struggled to find practical, trustworthy ways to get started. So, driven by a belief that AI should be accessible to every teacher, he co founded Secondary AI to create a space where educators can quickly begin using AI while also developing a deeper understanding of its possibilities for teaching and learning. Alongside his work as an educational technology specialist, Adam is completing a master's of science in teaching and continues to explore how emerging technologies can support meaningful student centered learning. So, Adam, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me here.
All right, I want to dive in with our first question here. So, what first pulled you into AI and what led you to build Secondary AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so my journey kind of started. I work here in Toronto at Humber Polytechnic. And so I've done a lot of work when I first started around an AI design assistant that was being um, launched through our learning management system, Blackboard. For those of you that maybe teach with it, you're familiar with it because it's been a few years now since that came out. But we did a lot of like testing, like vigorous testing, to get to a point where we trusted the tool. We verified that it was going to be helpful pedagogically and helpful in terms of workload as well. And that's kind of where I really got started with AI. Beforehand, I had heard about it, played around with it a little bit, but that's when I really took more of like a critical and in-depth kind of view. And in terms of how that kind of built up and how that led to secondary AI, as time went on, more and more tools came out, more and more questions about AI started, kind of coming out in the public sphere. And so seeing the concerns that I was hearing from instructors, hearing about the disconnect between their goals and what they were getting from AI, or there's so many different tools out there as well. We wanted to try and create kind of a unified platform. So that's kind of how it all comes together.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a very good sort of, I guess, reason to get into AI, I should say. I'm sorry, I'm kind of lost for words right now. But second question, for our listeners, most of them never heard of secondary AI. What problem are you seeking to solve, and who are you like actually building it for?
Yeah. So, I think that at this point we kind of have two like pools of people, let's say. You have kind of on one side, you have the people that are maybe have tested it, maybe haven't tried it out, and are a little bit more averse to getting into the AI space. And then you have those on the other side that are like, yes, everything AI, pass it on, let's do it. And I think it matches for both people very well. The way that we've set up the platform is it is very easy to get started. So if you check out our homepage, there's an area there where you can put in a prompt, select the various kinds of outputs that you want. So if you're looking for a specific lesson plan style, you want to make multiple lesson plans for like differentiation or for like a supply plan for supply teachers, you can create all of these kinds of outputs from just a single prompt. So that's kind of how it addresses that gap for beginning teachers that might be unfamiliar and are like, this is super overwhelming. There's all these fields I have to fill in and all these things that I have to consider on other AI tools. Whereas for those that are maybe a little bit more familiar, maybe a little bit more experienced, I've seen this firsthand, is you have to like make every time you want to create something, it's a new form every single time, right? And so this way you have a way to kind of build in a sequential order with just a single prompt, right? I might think, okay, I need to build this lesson plan. Based off this lesson plan, build an assignment, and then kind of build it from there. And so that's kind of how we set it up. So it's more constructively aligned. That's the word I was looking for.
Adam, I've got to say, I'm going to let the audience know you've given me access to secondary AI prior to this.
Of course.
And you and I are both educators. And I will share with you, you couldn't have done a better job of making something user friendly in terms of the first time you use it. And what I love about it is I'm not necessarily a first time user, but I was immediately hooked at the tool options that I had when putting in a single prompt, how I can go in and click, oh, I want you to develop a lesson for me, but I want you to use understanding by design thinking. Now, I know I might be speaking gibberish to some people outside of education, but understanding by design basically means you're beginning. Yeah, I know, Brian. It basically, to sum it up, you begin with the end in mind. So, like, you have an idea of where you want the kids to be at the end of the unit, and then you plan it accordingly. As a result, and it's a phenomenal tool. And the best part about your guys' tool is it is set up to be used as a tool. It is not set up to actually do the work for you. Brian, you have to go in for each section of the lesson that it plans. You have to go in and acknowledge that you like it or regenerate it or edit portions of it. So it is literally laid out like a tool to help you support you as you move forward. But the part that I really got hooked on was when you gave me a little bit of a teaser, Adam, when you started talking about vibe coding. So a lot of people are hearing the phrase vibe coding. What does that actually mean, and how do you see that fitting into education?
Yeah. So in terms of what vibe coding is, I think it's kind of become this buzzword. I think it kind of came out at some point last year in 2025, and so it was kind of the term was brought up by, I believe his name is Andrei Karpathy. You might have heard this name from. He was kind of a co-founder with OpenAI, was with AI for Tesla and a variety of other companies, and so he was. I think it was just like a regular talk or discussion or something like that, where he was talking about how in software development, they were doing vibe coding. I'm doing air quotes for those of you that are listening to this with audio. And so it's essentially I'm explaining the vibe or the essence of what I want the software to do or look like. And so I explain that in a prompt. And then the AI will then code for the specific software that you're hoping to build. And then in terms of that second part of the question is, what does that really look like and how does that fit into the education space? I would say that, the way that we've envisioned it here in secondary AI, there's definitely different approaches, but the way that we've thought about it is in the way that we constructively align those outputs, right? So in a traditional software sense, you might think of it as let's put in a single prompt and get out the software. But here we might put in a single prompt and then get this aligned pathway from, let's say, an assignment to, or from a lesson plan to an assignment to a quiz to some exit ticket to, a variety of different kinds of outputs. And we're working towards also having like an actual like vibe coding for like student interaction and smaller level kind of things that might help on a day to day, especially if you're like teaching on a lot of the faculty I was working with was teaching online for the first time, and you're like, hands up, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so it's a challenge. You can kind of add in some of these interactive elements into your course, but we can kind of talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the term vibe coding, being someone who's written code for machines and everything, and kind of learning different types of coding and everything. I'm very intrigued by vibe coding because I see how it could save a lot of time with everything. But I've always been an advocate, learn how what the coding concepts are. But vibe coding could be a good introduction, and everybody's going to be vibe coding. Like everybody's going to be doing it, so you might as well get used to it now. But for those listening, you want to learn the coding concepts. They'll help you be a better vibe coder. I'll just kind of throw that out there because being an engineer, I kind of got to say a lot of those things there. But kind of one thing with AI, I think this is like the question on everybody's mind right here, and kind of what a lot of this podcast is about. Where is the line? And that's kind of what I'm kind of seeing everybody sort of arguing. So, where do you see the line between like AI helping students between and AI doing too much for them?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think it's not like a super clear cut answer, right? I think
Hmm.
it really depends on so many contextual factors. Um, like, if I were to give like a specific, guideline, right? I would say that um, something that I've heard a lot is that human in the loop or the human in the lead, that term. And I
Hmm.
think that, in an educational context, if you are embedding AI into some kind of an activity assessment, into your classroom, I would say that at the end of the day, that the human has to have that ending of the loop or really be in the lead. So what does that look like? I would say that kind of a lot of the discourse that I've been seeing right now is okay. I might have a conversation with an AI, and then let's evaluate. What did I learn? What did the AI possibly get wrong? Right? Kind of having that reflective metacognitive kind of piece. At the very end of that, right? So then it really puts the learning back onto the student and to think, okay, what did I actually learn from this, and what did I get out of this activity, right? So there's obviously different ways to like set up learning for that kind of an experience, because I think that when we talk about like, okay, just at the end the student kind of reflects on what they did and what they learned. I think there are kind of different ways to set up maybe an assessment or a specific activity to do that, right? I think it really depends on your circumstance, the skills, the learning outcomes, right? Going back to that understanding by design kind of mindset that we were talking about earlier. It really kind of focus on those things first, come up with some kind of way for students to be active with that AI and have them reflect at the end.
I love that because
Yeah.
I think we're having a hard time in even the different levels in education of determining where is that line. Because I know I have some friends that are college professors, and they're very adamant there is no line. There's no need for AI in academia, and I'm
Right.
giggling, going, "I'm sorry, Brian and I have said this many times. It's out of the bottle. It's not going back
Right.
into the bottle." And I'm actually seeing a lot of more proactive approach at the elementary levels in terms of just basic interactions with things. And I know there's AI things like Magic School and other
Mhm.
tools. And I think that line is kind of defined by whoever you ask in the industry right now. And I think that's going to be
Hmm.
a very hard question to answer in the next 3 to 5 years. And I do feel like in the industry, we do have to get an answer to it, because if we do not get an answer to it, somebody's going to give us the answer, and we've just taken
Mhm.
it away
It might
from
not be the best
educators.
one.
Right, right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, something I wanted to ask, when you think about AI in schools and possibly even everyday life, what ethical concerns deserve more attention than what they're currently getting in terms of AI and usage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that kind of to your point, Adam, right? Something that I was thinking about prior to this, to our discussion here, was when you think about AI, yes, there's the people that say, absolutely not, it doesn't belong. And there's those people that are like, absolutely, yes, it should belong, right? And I think that maybe this answer might lean towards that, yes, it should belong. For the ethical perspective that if we don't share this information with our students, then they're going to be getting that information from somebody else or somewhere else, right? So think about, I look to the circumstances we had with like social media, for example, where we had a lot of like cyberbullying, right? We kind of avoided the conversation for a while, because it was something new and okay, let's just like not touch it for right now. But here we have an opportunity to get really ahead of this before it becomes a lot more mainstream. And, you can argue that it's already mainstream, it's already kind of part of everyday life. But there's an ethical perspective here that we need to provide this kind of guidance to our students. So yes, I can understand that you don't necessarily want to use it in your practice or use it in with students, but at least having discussions about why you believe that and your considerations about all of that is an important thing to kind of start at, I'd say.
I'd have to agree with you
Hmm.
100%. If I will share with you, I got into AI very early because I caught a student cheating, and actually
Right.
they kind of admitted it and showed me a tool called Jasper AI. I had no clue what it was. And then what I learned was they have these AI detectors, and how can we use these AI detectors
Hmm.
to detect the AI? It didn't take me long to go on YouTube, watch a kid
Right.
on, I think it was Twitch. Is that the one where you can live play a game? While
Yeah,
this kid is
yeah.
playing this video game, he is coaching others verbally on how to wash your AI through two different AI tools so that it can't be
Wow.
detected. And I'm sitting
Hmm.
there, it proves your point. If we don't have, or if we're not open to having those conversations centered around how to use AI properly and ethically, the kids are going to take it and use it their own way. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
and it's going to lead to that, like that example I gave, using AI to do the work for you, when in actuality we want it to be a tool to help them do the work. We want it to like scaffold for them. So
Right.
I agree with what you're saying. If we don't have that harsh conversation of where does this belong, how do we make sure
Hmm.
that the kids are doing it right,
Hmm.
they're going to decide on their own. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
that
would
kind.
say that, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say that even if, like, it doesn't matter which, like, kind of part of the spectrum you're on, right? Whether you're totally no or totally yes, that you can still have that conversation. And that's why I stress that point is because, if you, especially when you're a student, you have so many different teachers, right? Like, here in Canada, we have at least, 4 or 5 during the day in elementary or high school, depending. Um, but if everyone kind of sits differently on that spectrum, you get a wide range of perspectives as to why you should or why you shouldn't. And so again, that allows the student to then see, okay, I kind of agree with this point, but I don't agree with yet another point, and I agree with this teacher here because I've seen how that impacts me, right? So it provides a way for students to build on that critical thought.
Yeah, that yeah, kind of talking about like talking to kids about AI and the students, like it reminds me of conversations I have with my daughter. She'll be on YouTube or something and she'll look at a video, be like, "Dad, is this AI?" And I have to look at it. I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, and she keeps asking me these questions, and one time I really had to spot one, and there was like a baby with a dog, or no, with a cat on its back crawling across the floor, and it looked real. And my daughter's like, I don't think this is AI. And then I had to zoom in. I'm like, look at the feet. A baby's feet don't move like that. And then that's where, kind of, I'm happy that she asked me these things because, she's only 8 and she's like already like starting to become aware of AI's place. And, you can talk to your kids about these ethics, and it starts with, as they're young so they can understand it. So I definitely agree with getting these ethical conversations out of the way. But kind of pivoting here, when you were building secondary AI, what surprised you the most? Technology, people, anything else, or what was like the surprising thing when you started to work more with AI?
Yeah, to kind of talk about maybe the people aspect of it is, I found that I regularly post on LinkedIn, find sharing what I've been reading or research or news or whatever kind of comes to mind. And being I have co-founder of Secondary AI in my bio. Something that I've found interesting is that some people will comment and be like, well, you have like a financial stake in this, so it's like you're just like trying to sell your product, right? I'm like, well, we haven't even gotten to a point where we're like selling, right? That's one thing. And for two, it's, I'm building this because I want to make sure that, we're applying it correctly and ethically and for a way to, truly support teachers and students in the, in the process as well, right? It's not that, again, I think there obviously when you go into a business, right, there's that perspective that like, oh, you're getting into it for the financial gain, right? But here it's, I experienced what, faculty were experiencing and supporting them with that. And that's kind of where this came from is from a place of support. Right. So that's kind of one thing that, maybe a little bit more of a lighthearted situation. Yeah, just thought I'd share that.
Hmm.
Awesome. And for our listeners who are out there, Adam, you and I connected on LinkedIn. That's how I
Yeah,
found out about you, your product. But your posts are fantastic. They make me reflect.
appreciate that.
mostly as an educator, but also in terms of the impact that AI is going to have. Everything you post can be taken outside of the education realm and be applied probably in business or finance or engineering, any field that somebody's interested in. So if you are a listener and you're on LinkedIn, I would check out Adam's postings. They're pretty good. They make you reflect a lot. You do a good job of bringing that stuff up. So I just want to let you know that doesn't go unread and unappreciated.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you so much, guys.
so, Adam,
Yeah,
for most of
I'll
our
connect with you
listeners,
on LinkedIn soon.
Yeah,
I
all
haven't
good.
done so yet.
most of our listeners, because we're just the layman's AI, they're more curious and they probably don't have a technical background. So, if you were to give advice, what is one practical way they could start using AI more effectively this week? What would it be?
Something that, especially like when you hear something new like vibe coding, it's like super overwhelming to like, okay, before it used to be like chatbots, right? It's like, how do I, implement a chatbot? Before that, it was like, okay, well, how am I going to build out lesson plans or assignments with AI? And if you're kind of navigating all of those at once, I would say that the best rule of thumb and the thing that I always share with faculty is, again, start with what you've experienced in the classroom. The reason why we named secondary AI secondary is because you are primary, right? As an instructor or as a teacher, as a professor, whatever your role is, or whatever whatever role you are in, whether it's in education or not, you experience and know the problems that you face. You experience and know the people that you work with, and I think it's super important to bring that to AI. So let's say, for example, I was in a session recently where um, we were talking about, it's because again, I work with a lot of faculty that build out their courses for an online asynchronous delivery. So students kind of join and read their information at whatever point that they'd like to. So they wanted to include something more interactive, right? They're like, I'm looking at this course and it looks really bland, right? It's like just text and video and that's it. What can I do? And so you realize there, okay, you have a pain point, or again, you may have a specific student that you need to support. You might have tried different kinds of assessments, discussions, activities in the classroom that didn't work for you, and that's where I would start. I think that identifying those pain points is where you'll really see AI shine. Right? It's again, let's talk about that vibe coding example. Right? We had a situation where there was a challenge with interactivity, so. We on the spot, right, just went to our institutional tool was Copilot, Microsoft Pilot. So I just typed in, I want an interactive matching activity for, I believe the professor was teaching Chinese medicine, like herbs and things like that. So I said, something about that specific topic, and so it, within a few seconds, whipped something up. I copied the code, put it into the course, and we went through the activity together, and there was maybe 20 people in the auditorium at that point, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. Like, would you do it for this? Would you experience it for that? I think, again, starting it from that one pain point really helps you see what its potential is, and then you can kind of build from there. It's just, the rule of one at this point is just try one thing that can help
Yeah,
improve the student experience, your workload, or some other factor that you might be considering.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think one line in that whole part right there that really hit the nail on the head. You call it secondary AI because AI is secondary. You are primary. And I think almost every episode, Adam, I think we pretty much hit this home. Like this is just a tool. And
Yeah.
I'm like really glad to hear that you want this just to be a secondary one. Because I've been trying to like get that point across, be like, you are using AI. So you have to learn how to use it. So that's a very good how should I say very, very good. Oh my goodness, I am like bad on words. I got two kids. I'm sorry.
All good, all good.
yeah. That's a very good way of going about it. I should say. I can't think of a divine word. I'm not an English major. I'm a tech major. So anyway, but either way, let's go into the future now. Um, 5 years from now, let's say, what do you think people will misunderstand most about AI? Essentially, we all
Mm.
have our theories. Kind of curious on yours from your perspective.
Yeah, if I knew where AI would be in 5 years, I would be heavily investing in whatever whatever that is. My wife would be happy to hear that as well, right? But in all seriousness, we've only been in this for, let's say, 3 or 4 years now, right? Like it was
Mhm.
2022, 2023. So I mean, and look at how far we've come. At that point when we first started, it was just like a chat interface. Um, Now we can create, video like we were talking about. We can create images, we can create code, software programs, all of this. There's a whole realm of new possibilities. Um, I honestly think that, where it'll go, I'm not sure, but I think that um, something that will is misunderstood, and I think hopefully gets a little bit more clear is that training process in terms of the background, like neural network and all of that. I think it's not necessarily a conversation that we have a lot because it's so technical that I'm still kind of figuring it all out, right? I think
Mhm.
that having a clearer understanding of how these models are trained will help us understand where its strengths and where its weaknesses are going to lie, kind of like at a,
Mhm.
a very basic level, but I think it's still something that will have an impact on how we use AI in the future as well.
I couldn't agree more with you. Once again, I do feel the more I learn about how it works, the better I get at my own prompting. And granted, we've had some
Mhm.
Mhm.
tools like Brian and I covered this tool called Flomped, which helps you create very good prompts. And we've both said that when you actually look at how it breaks it down, it makes so much sense because if you understand how it works, you do a better job at figuring out what it needs because it's not a human that you're talking to. So like leave the manners out of it. Don't say please, don't say thank you.
You're right.
Oh, would you
Yeah.
mind making one of this for me? No, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
computer, they don't like that if that was the
Yeah. Yeah.
thing. So I agree
Yeah.
with you. I
Well,
think
it's
we are going to have that more basic understanding of how
yeah.
AI works. Yeah.
For sure, and it's I think the stereotypical Canadian person in me is like, oh, I have to say please and thank you. Like I can't say no, 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 no manners. Like I can't do that. There's something ingrained in me that has to, right? But
Right.
yes, I
We
completely agree.
Yeah, we
Well,
understand. Brian and I grew up in the Midwest, so and
yeah.
if we
Mhm.
completely understand how important
Yeah,
manners are, yeah, it's please and
Well,
thank you.
I will say, as an American that does visit Canada semi often, I will say I do appreciate that about visiting Canada is how nice the people are. So I'm okay with
yeah,
that. But but yeah, there's
yeah,
no need for a please or thank you when talking to AI. You're not going to save yourself from the robot apocalypse. So we'll just get that out
yeah.
of the way now.
All right, so last question, but then I got a little bit of a follow up. 5 years from now, Adam, where do you see secondary AI?
I was thinking about this I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about these questions in advance, and I've kind of been like playing with this answer. I'm not really sure how to answer it well. I think that, to get maybe a little bit personal here, is that I am a Catholic, and so recently the Pope came out with Magnificat Humanitas, which is an encyclical. It's essentially like a church document that is kind of helping us through the challenges that we're kind of currently facing around AI specifically.
Mhm.
And so, kind of reading that. Has opened my eyes to a few things and helped me understand where that kind of faith-based perspective fits into all of this. I'm not sure where this is going to be in a year, let alone 5 years. I think that getting feedback from instructors and from teachers themselves and really involving them in the process. That's what I want over the next 5 years, is to really get like a community of practice, a community of teachers there to help guide the development. Um, that's one kind of thing that's been popping into my head. I'm also kind of I like to really look at things in a practical sense as well. So if I had to guess what features or what overarching kind of topics might be involved in there, is really getting into more of that vibe coding, like in the software sense, building more interactivity. I really like um, and I've seen it firsthand how interested instructors are in that element. Um, there's a lot of considerations, obviously, like accessibility and like data privacy with those kinds of things. So
Mhm.
I think that maybe having um, an area there where it kind of considers those lenses and realms would be a great kind of move forward. It's also something really fun that I like doing in my spare time is like, okay, I want to try and build this out or do this, right? So it's maybe a little bit personal, but I think it's a great move, what I've been seeing from my circle.
That's awesome. I just want to say I wish your product was available when I was when I was an assistant principal and when I was a principal, and we had those incidences where we needed emergency sub plans because something happened. Teacher had an emergency, like a true emergency where they had to leave suddenly. I just you have a heck of a product for that immediately. I could have just typed in a couple things as been like, okay, here you go, here's your lesson for the day. And in all honesty, kidding aside, it's a great tool for teachers even when those emergency situations come up. It's also a great tool for reflecting on your lesson plans to see if there's different ideas out there. So my hope is that college students who want to be educators are taking a look at tools specifically like secondary AI to get an idea of how to lay out a good lesson plan, how to create materials that align with the lesson plan. I think we take for granted that we think we do a good job of aligning our instructional strategies when in actuality we usually just align it with content and not necessarily instructional strategies. Your tool does that, and your tool does that very well. Speaking as somebody who's evaluated several education tools.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bravo to you. You guys are doing a great job with what you have there. I'm not just saying that because I must say this is a non-paid. There's no there's no money involved in any of this. So speaking from my experience, you guys have a great product. I would definitely share that as much as I can with young educators and even veteran educators. I love what you have a vision of. We're going to go with the flow and figure this out as we go along. And I think that's going to work for you. I really do.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I think, like you said, sometimes it's so constricting, right? Having like, okay, I want this to be the direction, but if we're seeing and hearing different things from our instructors, again, going back to that secondary in the name, if it's not helping our teachers with their workload, with their students, with whatever factors they're considering, then that means we have to change our direction, right?
Yeah. You always got to stay fluid, especially educating, I would assume, because everything is like constantly evolving, and the world we grew up in isn't. The kids you're teaching right now aren't going through the world that we entered as young adults either. So that definitely is a good thing. But it's really nice to see more proactive tools and more like education embracing AI rather than like trying to fight it, which I think it's going to be a losing battle. So no, I do like seeing tools like this that try to embrace it responsibly and try to be more of a realistic viewpoint on everything, because you don't want AI to do everything, but you have to use it and how to use it. So I think this is like a very good first step, and kind of like the philosophy that I like to go with AI as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Adam, before Brian closes us out, if a listener wants to connect with you or talk to you more about the product, where are some places they can go to check out more information?
Absolutely. So there's a few different places that you can go. My LinkedIn, like we kind of talked about, you can find me, Adam Palczewski. It's a little bit of a cute, confusing name, unfortunately. My Polish parents, you can blame them for that. And so if you find me on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me, and then just say that I've heard you on the Layman's podcast. I'd love to hear where you're connecting with me from. That's one area. Number two, you can find our product on thesecondary.ai. Exactly, the secondary AI. There you'll find our product. You can sign up for free. What we're hoping to kind of provide to anyone that's listening to this podcast is if you go to thesecondary.ai/layman's starter, there is a page there where you can get a few months free. We're hoping to offer that, and in return, we're just asking for some feedback. Again, trying to get those teachers in to help with supporting what we're building here, but also to support you in your work, right? Because I can understand that it's a challenge to purchase tools, it's a challenge to get tools that work for you as well, right? You don't want to get into a tool, find out it doesn't work, and then have to change gears, and then you lost money and all of that. So it's an opportunity for buddy here to connect with us, find out what we're doing, and test it out.
Excellent.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Thank you for that. I think that about kind of wraps us up for the evening. Adam, I would like to give big thanks to our guest. I'm repeating myself. Thank you to our guest Adam today, co-founder of the Secondary AI. I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast and everything, and hope we kind of answer some questions for our audience and everything, and kind of give a nice preview. But really appreciated talking to you this evening.
Yeah, and thank you so much. You guys,
Yep.
really make it easy for me to come here and
Mhm.
share my thoughts, and I really appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
very
you, Adam.
good. So, yeah, but anyway, so yeah, that's gonna conclude this episode today. I'd like to give everybody a big thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to us. My name is Brian,
And I'm Adam.
and you have been listening to the Layman's AI, and we will see you next time.